A one and a two and a chick-a-boom a chick.
Welcome to the Remodelers on the Rise show. I have Dr. Noah St. John. He's the author of Seven Figure Expert. For those of you watching the video, he just gave us a little wave. Do you also want to say hi to the people?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Great to see you.
There we go. So probably, I guess it was a month or two back, I get a lot of emails from a lot of people trying to get guests, added to different podcasts, especially when you're running the world-renowned Remodelers on the Rise podcast. We get so many requests, but they do pop through each and every week. And the sweet person who is setting up guest appearances for Dr. Noah had kind of said, hey, here's a potential guest for you. And I started reading kind of through what you do. And we have this thing of the father of Afformations. I'm interested to kind of hear more about that. The creator of the 12-week breakthrough, talking about working with Hollywood celebrities and non-figure CEOs and professional athletes. And I was reading through, I thought it was about the week before, I thought it'd be good to get some folks outside of remodeling, people that don't necessarily specialize or work in remodeling, just to get some outside guidance and ideas. And right about that same time, that's when this email came through. And here you are, fine sir.
And here we are. That's wonderful. See, timing is everything, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. So I'm going to kind of let you maybe just give us a little introduction to yourself and let the people know, and myself a little bit more of who we are chatting with today.
Well, my name is Dr. Noah St. John. You can learn more about me on my website, noahstjohn.com. Very easy to remember. And I am known as the father of Afformations and also the host of the 12-week breakthrough, because I'm known for helping entrepreneurs make more in just 12 weeks than they did in the previous 12 months, while actually winning their lives back. So I'm sure everybody listening to this program is very familiar with the hustle and grind, right? The hustle bros that say, hey, if you want to be successful, you got to work 18, 20, 30 hours a day. And I'm like, you're nuts, buddy. I mean, sure. I mean, there's always a time in our careers when we're starting our business, let's say, and you're working hard, you're putting in those long hours. But after a while, the hustle and grind is not sustainable. And so what I'm known for is helping entrepreneurs to really install systems that do the work so you don't have to work so hard. And that's why I say, yes, you're going to make more money, but even more exciting, you're going to win your life back, because isn't that why we got into business in the first place, is to have a life? Shocking, I know, but here we are. And so, yeah, I've helped my clients add over $3 billion collectively.
Hey, was that three with a B? Was that three with a B?
That's a B, yeah. So 6, 7, and 8 figures. In fact, one of my clients right now, I'm helping him go through, I'm coaching him through a 9-figure exit right now. So yes, I coach 7, 8, and 9-figure CEOs, but also helping people get from that 6-figure to 7-figure level and 7 to 8 and maybe have a 9-figure exit, So
yeah, it was interesting fun. How you're kind of like, yeah, the making more, that's something, but you emphasized right after that, and again, a second time, winning their lives back. I think yes. Sometimes I get this with prospects. Occasionally I'll talk to a kind of a peer of mine and they'll say, well, give me you've been coaching Kyle for 18 years, like give me a success story. And every time they're asking that, it usually does revolve around, they're asking me about the money side, like, tell me about that. And while you can point to that, every story that comes into my mind is, here was somebody that was having a lot of struggles at home. Their marriage was a mess. Here's somebody that was feeling very hollow as far as being a good parent. Here's somebody that was just feeling overwhelmed, where the business was absolutely running their life versus the other way around. So lean into that a little bit, if we can kind of jump off that, of talk about that side of things and kind of where your mind goes and where your coaching goes with that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what I've been doing for 30 years now, is helping people to make more money and win their lives back. And so, having written 25 books on the subject, I have a lot of experience in helping people make...
Hey, settle down over there. 25 books?
Yes, sir. Yes, 25 books. You can see some of them behind me here, for those of you watching on video. And
my hand hurts just thinking about that. That's a lot of writing.
Yeah, it is. Actually, I'm the only author in history that's had works published by Hay House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Mind Valley, Nightingale Conan, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. No one else in history's ever done that.
Oh,
So
Chicken Soup for the
that's
Soul. I remember those
little old
back in
me.
the day.
Oh, you
Okay.
remember Nightingale Conan?
More of the Chicken Soup for the Soul. That was,
Chicken
you know,
Soup, right.
as a guy growing up in the 90s, you know, that was huge,
Right.
in the 2000s, etc.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, so anyway, to your question. So one of the things that I'm known for is helping entrepreneurs to really install what I call the freedom lifestyle formula. And so everything I do is all about systems, frameworks, and formulas. And the reason that's so important for people is because when we see out in the guru space, you know, the personal development, the business development space, what we see mostly is what I call personality driven success. And what I mean by that is it's exactly what it sounds. It's dependent upon that guy's personality. And you'll notice that in the space here, we have a lot of people with a lot of big personalities. And, you know, they're very flamboyant, very extroverted. And, you know, hey, look at my yacht and look at my helicopter. And aren't I cool? And I made all this money. And I'm like, that's great for you, buddy. But have you helped anyone else make any money? And usually the answer is not so much, you know. And so the point is that that's what we see a lot of because they're very loud and extroverted and they spend a lot on ads. And so I really take the opposite approach, which is a system driven approach, which really makes sense if you think about it, because the question that I always have for those guys is, well, what if I don't have that personality? And then 9 times out of 10, it means you're out of luck. So my system is really for the rest of us who maybe you don't have that big personality. Maybe you just enjoy what you do and you just want to make some more money and win your life back. So my freedom lifestyle formula really deals with 4 elements of what I call a freedom lifestyle. So those elements
I was just
are
about to say,
time.
Dr. Noah, can you go through your freedom lifestyle formula and bam, you're already coming at us with these 4.
I can read your mind. I know what you want to add, right? I know what everybody wants to add. All right, let's go. So, you know, I don't make people wait for it. Here we go. Let's jump right into it. So the 4 elements are time, energy, relationships, and money. All right. So if you plot those, by the way, I'm a total nerd. So when you read any of my books or take any of my coaching programs, you'll notice that I use a lot of Venn diagrams, right? That's like the best thing for us nerds is Venn diagrams. I love them. And so if you picture a Venn diagram,
and nerd, using the phrase nerd, I feel like back in the day it was almost an insult. Now it's a compliment, isn't it?
Absolutely. I was a nerd long before it was cool to be a nerd.
Okay.
In high school, I was already a nerd. I had Coke bottle glasses, a face full of acne, and I didn't have shoulder length hair. I had shoulder width hair. So,
all right.
You know, as you can imagine, I was a total chick magnet, you know. Not so much. Anyway, so being a nerd, now it's cool to be a nerd. I was like 40 years ahead of my time, you know.
Speaking of which, on the chick magnet thing, exciting times over here. But with my wife and I this morning, we have 2 friends of ours that we just figured out need to meet each other, and I think we've got a perfect match for each other. We're very excited about it.
Nice.
Let it be known right now at September 9th at 12:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tyler and Anna, it's going to work.
Nice.
And I feel like they're going to invite us to their wedding. They haven't even met each other yet, but now it's documented.
I love it. I've helped a lot of people find their loved ones too. You know, their soulmates.
So freedom lifestyle formula: time, energy, relationships, money. Venn diagrams.
So if you look at that and imagine a Venn diagram with those 4 circles that intersect in the middle where you have all 4 of those elements, you're living what I like to call a freedom lifestyle. So very quickly, so if you look at the element of time, right? So one of the things that I do with my clients, whether it's one-on-one coaching or group coaching, one of the things we start with is really taking your freedom lifestyle temperature. So every one of you listening to this program can actually do this right now. So if you think about the element of time, rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 means, Noah, I got too much to do in too little time, right? Your to-do list is a mile long, right? And you're always feeling like you're running on that hamster wheel. So that would be like a 1. A 10 is, no, I got all the time in the world. Okay, great. So the element of time, then you have energy, right? So how are you doing on energy? There's basically 2 forms of energy. There's positive energy and negative energy, right? High and low. And so energy is how you go through your day. So you can go through your day happy, joyful, grateful, or you can be angry, resentful, and miserable, right? So rate yourself 1 to 10 on energy. Then relationships, right?
We were just talking about negative, 10 being very positive on the energy.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So 10 would be a positive on the energy. Then relationships, you want to rate yourself on relationships. How are you doing in your personal relationships and your business relationships? Those can certainly be mixed for many people. Like, I work with my wife, you work with your wife, and, that can be mixed, but sometimes, you obviously want to separate those as well. So you want to rate yourself in relationships, scale of 1 to 10, and money. Money is very important. Last time I checked, the people who say money can't buy happiness, I always give that quote from that great philosopher, David Lee Roth, who said, money may not be able to buy happiness, but it can buy a yacht so you can pull right up next to it. Great philosophy, Dave. Anyway, so the point is rate yourself from 1 to 10. How are you doing on money? All right. So there you are. And literally in 60 seconds, you can have a freedom lifestyle temperature. And of course, we go into this much further, in my coaching and my books. But the point is you can literally see, okay, how am I doing? Do I need to have some help on time? Do I need help on energy, relationships, or money? Or what's most common is I need a little help in all 4 areas.
Yeah. Yeah. Which one do you see? Yeah. Yes. I think all of us can probably go, well, maybe all 4 of those. Which one do you typically see kind of jump out more than others off the shoot?
83% of people hire me because money is their number one frustration. Makes
Gotcha.
perfect sense, right? Because most entrepreneurs are working really hard and not seeing the return on the investment that they should be having, right? The return meaning return on your time, on your effort, and on your money, right? So you want to get that positive ROI. I'll give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. I was talking with one of my clients named Charles, and I asked him, because he had been watching my videos on YouTube, he'd been reading my books, and so he understood what makes me different. My approach is different from most of the people out there. And so we were talking, and I asked him a question. I said, Charles, how much do you think it's going to cost you if we actually don't put these systems in place for you this year? And without batting an eye, he said $1 million. He said, it's easily going to cost me $1 million if I don't install these systems because I'm working really hard. I mean, he was doing well. He was at 6 figures, but he just couldn't break through that income ceiling because he was just putting in all these hours and working hard. So I said, okay, I tell you what, you said it's costing you $1 million not to have these systems. Yes. I said, I tell you what, why don't you just give me 10% of that million and I'll find you $1 million in the next 12 months. In other words, if you give me $1 and I give you $10 back, is that a good deal? He goes, yeah, that's a good deal. He goes, let's do it. So that's why I love working with high achievers, right? Because they make decisions quickly and firmly. They don't dilly-dally, don't say, oh, I got to think about it. He just said, let's do it. So he literally invested $100K. That's 10% of $1 million, right? To get coaching with me. I coached him for a year. Now, as it turns out, I didn't find him $1 million in the next 12 months. Instead, I found him 1.8 million in just 10 months. So he gave me $1 and I gave him $18 back. Is that a good deal? No, that's a great deal. And then to jump off of that, make it even better, he sent me an email. He said, hey, Noah, guess where I am? I'm on a 7-week vacation with my wife right now. I bought a new RV. He said, this is a dream I've had for 20 years. And he said, I never had the time or the money before. And he said, now because of coaching with you, I have the time and the money I always wanted. So we bought a new RV. We're taking 7 weeks off. And I'm making more than ever. And he said, thank you, Noah, for changing my life. So that's how powerful it is when you install these systems.
Yeah. Dig in a little bit or give a little bit more insight, even in that example. In that case, what were a few of the areas that needed to be adjusted that really started to dial it in? Or, I mean, was it hiring people? Was it delegating things better? Was it preparing differently? Was it how they were spending time? What are some of the things that you see that allow for those types of results?
Whenever I am coaching someone, whether it's one-on-one coaching or group coaching, we always start from the inside out. So I like to call that the inner game versus the outer game. Now, inner game is everything that happens between your ears that you can't see directly, but it affects everything that you do. So, for example, when I'm speaking at a keynote, right? As a keynote speaker, I get to speak to teams, organizations, companies all around the country and around the world. And one of the things I like to say to my audience members is, what's one area of your life where your beliefs don't affect you? And of course, people go, And I go, exactly. There's no place your beliefs don't affect you, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
beliefs affect your health, your wealth, your money, your relationships, everything I've been talking about. But here's the funny thing. You can't see a belief. You can only see the effects of a belief. And that's why you can be doing well in one area, but maybe you're stuck or struggling in another. For example, maybe you do have the time that you want, but you're not making the money you want, or vice versa. You're making great money, but you don't have the time to enjoy it, right? So it's not cookie cutter, one size fits all. It's a very customized, personalized approach for every client, whether it's one-on-one or group coaching. And so that's the inner game. And then we also have the outer game, right? So that leads to things like you were talking about, like delegating, right? That's a big, big hurdle for many entrepreneurs. Millions of entrepreneurs really find it very hard to delegate. Why? Well, because they're good at everything, right? And when you're good at everything, you're like, well, I might as well just do it myself. It's easier to just do it than train somebody to do it, right? And so one of the things that I work with Charles on, and with many of my clients, I would say most of my clients, is helping people see the difference between $10 an hour work and $1,000 an hour work. You're the CEO, you're the founder, you're the entrepreneur. You shouldn't be doing $10 an hour work. Now, the $10 an hour work has to be done, but it shouldn't be you doing it. Just as a simple example, every entrepreneur, everyone listening to my voice, you need to have a website. No kidding, right? Everybody needs to have a website. But does that mean you should build your own website? No, of course not, unless you really enjoy doing that. But even then, I would question it, really, because you need to be focusing on those high level, as I call it, $1,000 an hour tasks versus the $10 an hour tasks, like answering emails, answering the phone,
Sure.
Building websites, and so forth. So that is one of the areas that I work with basically everybody on.
Gotcha. So the 12 weeks aspect of helping make more in 12 weeks than they do the previous 12 months. I think a lot of remodelers listening to this who have been in the game for a while kind of look at it and hear coaches. You mentioned kind of the bro hustle coaches. That's kind of how I refer to them as well. Or maybe I just don't like to work out, so I can't become one of them. I don't know. Every coach, has an audience and brings a certain approach to it in positives, and similarly for us, the way we coach. But sometimes we hear like, hey, in 12 weeks, you're going to make more in 12 weeks than you are in 12 months. When I hear that, it's a little bit of like, yeah, maybe. But that's pretty speedy. It's 90 days though. It's 90 days. It's 3 months. It's a quarter. To unpack that a little bit more, like where do you usually start with that? Where are the areas that, obviously all coaching, like you said, it depends on the person. Sometimes when a remodeler comes to me, it's the financials that need to be touched first. Sometimes it's what you were talking about of more the mental side and the belief side that I can do this. What do you typically see? What levers and maybe some examples on how you make that happen?
I always start from the inner game. I never, in 30 years of doing this, I've never started from the outer game first. So that's, one of the reasons why I love working with professional builders and people who understand homes, like real estate professionals, remodelers, and things like that, because you understand. I use the house analogy all the time. Yeah. And that is, you can't start building a house from the outside in. Right? If you did, good luck. I mean, it's not going to work out that well. And so everything starts with your inner game, whether you believe it or not. And so what happens is other coaches, what they'll do is they say, okay, you're not making the money you want. You know what? We need more marketing. We need better marketing. You've got to do marketing. And of course you do. Every business on planet Earth has to do marketing. The problem is they already know that. And I'll give you a great example. All right. I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called ClickFunnels. So ClickFunnels is, run by a brilliant guy named Russell Brunson. He's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for over 2 decades. And
there might even be a disc behind your left shoulder that came from him.
Exactly. Yes, that would be the $1 million deal, the 2 comma club, as he calls it. Anyway, so ClickFunnels has about 250,000 users, right? About 250,000 people around the world who use this platform called ClickFunnels. What's fascinating, however, is that 90% of them have not built one funnel. I wonder why that is. Is it because they don't know how to build a funnel? Of course not. They're given tons of information. All right, first you click here and you click there and you do that and you do that. No way. It has to do with inner game, what I've been teaching for 30 years, which is most people just don't think they can do it. They don't believe that they can do it, which is what I call your head trash. Now, head trash is the voice in your head that says, I can't do it because. So for everyone listening to this program, I want you to think about your goals for the next 12 months. All right. Really focus on those goals. Just think about them. If you're at a place where you can do it, write it down. But everybody talks about goals, right? We've heard this a million times, right? Set your goals and think positive and visualize it and do a vision board. We've heard this a million times. So why is it then that most people don't reach their goals? Because we all know that too, right? We've heard that a million times.
Sure.
Well, you haven't thought positive enough. You're not working hard enough. You're not working long. Okay. We've heard this too many times, right? There's got to be something else going on. Yeah. What I've been teaching for 30 years. The reason I've helped people make $3 billion. And that is what happens for most people. They set a goal. All right. So let's take a common goal. Hey, Noah, I'm making, $10,000 a month right now, and I want to get to $100,000 a month. Okay. Or I'm making $100,000 a month. I want to get to $500,000 a month. But you see what I mean? I mean, whatever it is, right? Yep. Take a simple number, right? So for everyone listening, whatever your number is. Most people say, I want to make 10 times more than I'm making right now, right? That's a 10X is a very common thing. 10 to 100, 100 to a million, whatever your number is.
I'm making 12,000 a month and I want to get to 18. That's a reasonable goal as well.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So that's your goal, right? You got your goal. Yay. But here's what people don't realize. And that is what happens after you set your goal. So guess what happens for most people? They say, hey, Noah, I want to go from 100,000 to 500,000 a month, but I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm already working so hard. I'm already working these long hours. I can't possibly work any harder or longer. I'm like, no kidding. Of course you can't. Right? That's not what we're saying. Do you think people who are making 10 times more than you are 10 times smarter than you? Do you think they're working 10 times harder than you? Do you think they're working 10 times longer than you? None of that is even mathematically possible. So there's got to be something else going on. And it has to do with what I've written 25 books about, which is what I'm saying right now, which is head trash. The head trash says, I want X, but I can't do it. I can't do it. And then you give all the reasons why. Oh, I'm too busy. I don't have the money. I can't afford it. I don't know who to trust. I've tried everything already. You see what I mean? Yep. So, going back to my example, like Charles, he was telling himself all these things, right? So this is why I always start with inner game. I uncover using my power habit system, the same framework I've been teaching for 30 years that shows you exactly why you think you can't do the thing you just said you wanted. And then we systematically take out the trash. Now, another way of saying this is that most people, and I'm going to move analogies here, most people are driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake. And so if you think about your goal as a destination, because that's exactly what it is. I want to go from where I am to where I want to be. It's a destination. It's exactly like saying, well, I want to go to the grocery store and get some food. Okay, that's your destination, is the grocery store. And what you want to buy, that's why you're going there, right? So no one would get in their car, drive to the store, walk around for an hour, then get in their car and drive home. That wouldn't make any sense, would it? But yet, that's what so many people are doing. They're driving somewhere and they don't even know why they're going. Right. So that's one point. But then the second point is most people are driving down the road with one foot on the brake. That's the head trash that's holding so many people back. And so if you're driving down the road with one foot on the brake, how long do you think it's going to take you to get to the store? You might never get there. And that is why so many people hold themselves back. And that's why I've helped my clients make $3 billion, because we, number one, identify your head trash. Then number two, systematically remove the trash, which means you get your foot off the brake, which means you reach your goals 10 times faster and easier with a lot less stress.
And you mentioned power habit system. Give us one little nugget from that, an example from that.
Well, I mean, that's what I've been doing. I mean, that the power habit, the beginning part, the foundation of the power habit system. And by the way, let me talk about that, if I may, for a moment. So what my power habit system represents, the full title of it is The Power Habits of Unconsciously Successful People. Now, that's a mouthful, but let me unpack that for you. So, what I realized 30 years ago, because I read over 400 self help success books, I mean, literally from the time I was a kid, because I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. And growing up poor in a rich neighborhood, I realized that my family of origin had a lot of, as we now call it, poverty consciousness. I didn't know that term, of course, back then, but I just realized if I stay here with this believing that I'm always going to be poor, then I'm always going to be poor. And I hated being poor because I saw that right down the street, there's great wealth and abundance. So I literally said, how the heck do I get from here to there? And so I did the only thing I could think of, which is I went to the library and I read every book in the self-help section. I said, I got to get out of here. I got to make something of myself.
It's a weird thing for a teen to be doing, Noah.
Yes, it is. I know. But I'm weird. What can I tell you? So I already told you that. So anyway, but yeah, I did. And so I read over 400 self-help success books. They all said the same thing. Set your goals, think positive, use affirmations, write it in the pot, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it a million times. So the problem was it didn't work. And so at the age of 25, I actually decided to commit suicide. I decided to take my own life at age 25 because I'd been reading all these books for years and I had nothing to show for it. There's nothing worse than working really hard for something and not getting the thing, not getting the result. It's one thing if you work hard and you get the result, then you're like, that's called satisfaction. But working hard and getting nothing, that's called struggle. That's called pain. That's called frustration. And sadly, that's where a lot of people are. So at the last moment, my life was spared back then. And I realized I've got to figure out why I did this. And most importantly, what's missing in all these books I've been reading? What aren't they telling us? And that's why fast forward 5 years after that experience in 1997, that's when I realized what they never tell you. And that is that highly successful people are doing things unconsciously that they don't even know they're doing, number one, and therefore, number two, they can never teach it. So when we look at the habits training that's out there, there's tons of habits. There's the 7 habits of highly effective people. There's atomic habits and many, there's tons of those. But what's interesting is they're all talking about conscious habits. Now, I'm sure everyone listening to this program is familiar with the iceberg principle of human behavior. The iceberg principle very simply states that only 5% of our thoughts, behaviors, and actions are conscious on the conscious level. Meanwhile, the vast 95% is in the subconscious. So it's like the iceberg, right? So you see the 5% that's above the surface, that's your conscious mind, but the vast 95%, the reason you're holding yourself back in the first place, it's all below the surface of consciousness. And as I always tell my clients, and in my keynote speeches, I always say to my audience members, it wasn't the part of the iceberg that they could see that sunk the Titanic. It was the part they didn't see.
Right.
That sunk the Titanic. And that's what's sinking all of us too, the part that is beneath the surface. So that's why my power habit system represents the unconscious habits. And the point is, you can listen to all these guys, these highly successful people all day long, and they'll all say the same thing. But what they don't tell you is actually what's the most important thing, these hidden habits, as I call it, the power habits.
Interesting. I feel like we're getting into some kind of your background and your doctorate of psychology and that side of things. It's interesting. My son's always loved every class he's taken of the study of the mind and how we work. He's always been interested in it. And I think because he was watching too many reels, he was watching all these bros go, hey, you need a major in finance. You can make a bunch of money. So he thought about doing that last year. Didn't like it at all because he doesn't care about finance too much. And all of a sudden, you know what? I think psychology. I've got 2 psychology classes. I think I kind of like that. And I mean, you're scratching the surface of it a little bit here, and kind of open maybe if people wanted to hear about, okay, no, you're talking about these unconscious habits. Which of your 25 books should they pick up to kind of dig into that aspect of it?
Well, the one that I would always recommend is this one right here called Power Habits. I'm holding it up for those of you not watching the video, but it's called Power Habits, the new science for making success automatic. You can get this at powerhabitsbook.com. Very easy to remember, powerhabitsbook.com. And actually, if you get it there at powerhabitsbook.com, I'll actually give you $300 worth of bonus gifts, right? Including a Power Habits success tracker, which is really awesome. So you can just get it anywhere books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. But if you go to powerhabitsbook.com and then enter your information, I give you a whole bunch of gifts. So that's the one that, and that, like Charles, who I talked about earlier, that's the book that he said he actually was in Barnes & Noble. And he told me he walked by my Power Habits book 3 times and he just kept walking by it. And so he said, something called out to me and I got your book and now we're talking. And of course he went on to make a lot of money as a result of coaching with me.
Very cool. Tell us about, so thank you so much so far. I think we're getting, we've touched on a variety of topics that I think business people can resonate with and relate to. You talk about being the father of Afformations, AFFOR. Teach us a little bit about what that is and how it's helpful for us to understand.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, that's another one of my book. I'm going to hold up another book. It's called The Book of Afformations. I promise I won't hold all 25. But anyway, it's called AFFORMATIONS, Afformations. And you can learn more about this at affirmations.com. Again, just remember that AFFORMATIONS. So of course, everyone listening to this program, if you've ever read a self-help book, you know what an affirmation is, right? We've been taught for decades that an affirmation is a statement of something you want to be true. So a classic affirmation is, I am rich, right? In fact, at my keynote speeches, when I'm speaking to my audience members, whether live or virtually, I'll often say to my audience members, all right, everybody say the affirmation we've all been trained to say. Everybody say, I am rich. Everybody goes, I am rich. You know what happens next? Everyone starts laughing. And I go, what are you laughing at? And they go, well, I'm not rich. And I say, but you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. See, isn't that the problem with that old method? The old affirmation method said, well, you just say these statements until you believe it someday, even if you don't believe it. Well, the problem is most people never believe it. In fact, a scientific study showed that 75% of people, get this, 75% of people who use that old method end up more frustrated than before. So imagine if you had a smartphone that didn't work 3 out of the 4 times you went to use it. You'd probably get a new phone, wouldn't you? Right? So that's what I invented, is a new phone for your brain. And that's my Afformations method. So Afformations method that I invented in 1997 is, instead of saying a statement like I am rich, you ask a question, what I call an empowering question. So an example of that would be, why am I so rich? Why am I so happy? Why am I always in the right place at the right time? Now, those questions might sound really weird and funny to you right now, but your brain is automatically wired to search for answers to questions. It's called the embedded presupposition factor of the brain. And so what that simply means is when you ask a question, you search for the answer. And so if you're asking lousy questions, which is what most people are doing, something like, why am I so stupid? Why can't I do anything right? Why isn't my business growing? Why can't I get more customers? Why is there more month left at the end of the money? Right? You ask lousy questions, you get lousy answers, and that creates a lousy life. So using my Afformations method, I've trained over 3 million people around the world over the last 30 years to ask empowering questions like the examples I gave you. So that's my Afformations method. And using my Afformations method, we've helped many people to make more money, to find love, to lose weight, to overcome addiction, quit smoking, and many, many other things by virtue of the fact of asking empowering questions that immediately change your subconscious thought patterns from negative to positive.
You mentioned 3 of them. Why am I so rich? Why am I so happy? And why am I in the right place at the right time? I know those are just 3 that just kind of off the cuff. But the second one is the one that jumped out at me. I think the more we focus on the money side, I have found in my coaching that generally speaking, if we're driven by that, there's a certain drive that we need to provide for our families and maybe to reach some goals. But it's also a slippery slope that all of a sudden that becomes kind of the focal point, the main thing. So you threw out the why am I so happy part, because I think that's an area that as busy humans, as busy business people, as sometimes very driven business people, they do become quote unquote rich. They've got the money, they've got the things, they've got the, things they used to only dream of.
Yep.
And the happy part and that component is not quite as strong. So if you can riff on that a little bit, tell us a little bit about the happy part and how that all folds into all this and your kind of vantage point.
You're absolutely right, Kyle. There are a lot of miserable millionaires out there. Okay, so we don't want that. We want to be a happy millionaire, right? Because money is just one part of that equation that I already talked about, right? And that I've been teaching for many, many years. So actually, if you go to my website, you'll see that in one of my programs, we call it Know a Mentor, is the one-on-one program that we have, like that Charles took, for example. And the headline reads, I'm miserable, I'm rich. It reads, I'm rich but unhappy, please help. And that was an actual email I got years ago. I'm rich and unhappy, please help. So just imagine that, right? Because as you just said, the dream of everybody is to be rich, right? Well, many people get there and they're like, why am I not fulfilled? Why am I not happy? And going back to what I talked about earlier, it is true that money doesn't cause happiness, but money is definitely related to happiness. But you have to get everything else, my freedom lifestyle formula, the time, energy, relationships, you have to get all of that in balance. Otherwise, you are going to feel like you're maybe a miserable millionaire. Okay, so the point is that getting all of these things in place, as I call them, the systems, especially the power habit system, that's enabled a lot of people who, yes, they came to me with money, but they weren't necessarily happy. Can I give you a quick example?
Please.
Yeah. So I was speaking at a conference in Los Angeles to 1,000 business owners, entrepreneurs. These are 7 and 8 figure, even 9-figure earners, and very high powered people. And I was just walking off the stage after I finished my presentation. A man came up to me out of the audience and he said, Noah, I want to hire you as my coach. You are the coach I've been looking for. Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. Ironically, his name was Adam. True story. You can go to my website and check it out. Just watch the video for yourself. But anyway, so I said, okay, well, what's going on? He goes, Noah, I'm the owner of this company, the CEO, and we got to 7 figures really fast in the business, but we have been plateaued, stuck for the past 4 years, and we haven't grown at all. And he said, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. I hired every guru out there, every marketing guy, named all the big names, and we just can't break through that income ceiling. And he said, as soon as I heard you talk about Afformations and head trash and foot on the brake, everything you just said, he said, I knew you were the coach I've been looking for. So I want you to coach me. So he literally hired me on the spot. That's why I love working with high achievers, right? They make decisions quickly and firmly. So I coached him and his leadership team for 18 months. And in that 18 months, we were able to get his company that had been stuck for the previous 4 years at 7 figures to over 20 million in revenues, a 600% increase. And even more than that, he was also able to take time off for the first time ever, he told me. In fact, he sent me an email. He was in Monte Carlo with his friends. He says, I'm on the beach in Monte Carlo. I'm like, you're welcome. So that is, he would not allow himself to enjoy his riches, as we would say, or wealth. But not only did I increase the business by 600%, he was able to also take time off and finally enjoy all the fruits of his labor.
Interesting. Psychology, I think, is an area, and maybe some of my remodelers are psychologists galore. I'm not sure, but I am probably in the camp with a lot of my clients where the study of how we think and why we think and how to change our mindset, how to get rid of head trash, how to like you're saying, work on your inner game. So often what we charge is between our ears. And if we start our process of hiring people by saying, I've done this before, there's nobody good out there, it's not going to work. Well, you're already failing before you even start. So I think we know, especially if we struggled in business or things haven't been super easy, I think people start to recognize things around mindset. And so I appreciated what you're bringing up here. I appreciate also some of the resources of that you've written and that people can access to just start to become more of a student of why you think the way you think.
Yes.
And the more we can understand why we do what we do, what powers it, and what you're emphasizing here is a great, you're emphasizing several things, but that idea of how you view your goals, how you view your life, how you view what success looks like. And I push back a little bit on the happy part. And I hear the 1 to 10, I hear the Monte Carlo, I hear this. Most of my audience, they would love to take a 10-day vacation. That would be amazing. Right. They would
Right.
love to have another $30,000 this year that they can pour into college education. They would love another 70,000 year over year that they can start to put into retirement to catch up, so that, in retirement they can take $120,000 a year out. Right, that's the goal for a lot of folks.
Yes.
I appreciate that. There's a lot around mindset and limiting beliefs and all of those things that can be the thing that can jolt people. So you can go on the interwebs and find all kinds of training around how to build a marketing plan, how to build a sales process, how to understand your financials as a remodeler. That
Right.
area of leadership, and also that area of the inner game. We're talking to a gentleman who's wrote a lot about it. So if the folks would like to kind of hear a little bit more about this, I think you also maybe even have a new book that you're giving away for free.
Yep.
Where should our folks go, Noah?
Well, the place to start is just good old noahstjohn.com. There's tons of resources. I have a custom GPT called the Business Gap Finder. You can literally plug in your information. It's free, and just see the distance between where you are and where you want to be. All that's on noahstjohn.com. And yes, this is my new book called The 7-Figure Expert, Your Ultimate Guide to a Life of More Impact, Influence, and Financial Freedom. That's what a lot of people want, right? More impact, influence, and financial freedom. So this book is available at 7figureexpertbook.com. Easy to remember, 7-Figure Expert Book. And the book is free. I've covered the cost of the book, and we just ask you to cover the shipping there at 7figureexpertbook.com. But you can see everything at noahstjohn.com. And by the way, if you do want to explore coaching with me, just go to breakthroughwithnoah.com. Also easy to remember. I'm known as the Breakthrough Coach. So breakthroughwithnoah.com, and you can, we'll get on a quick Zoom, like 15 minutes, and I'll map out the whole process for you in about 15 minutes. So breakthroughwithnoah.com.
How many domain names do you own, Noah?
200. That's down from 800. I used to own 800. I sold a bunch of them.
Way to be disciplined. I've done that over the years too, of going, Kyle, do you really need to renew all of these? Settle down,
right?
Mr. Business. Settle down, marketing and business minds. Yeah. If you were to share one more nugget of wisdom, something that you maybe often share with folks and that is impactful for folks, maybe it's related to the inner game, maybe it's some motivation, some encouragement for them. Close this out with a little bit of Dr. Noah St. John wisdom, if you would.
If you find that you're working way too hard and not reaching the goals, the desires, the dreams that you have, realize there is a solution. There are options. And the thing that I would encourage you to do is do your homework, do your research, and make sure that whoever you decide to get coached from or get mentored by, make sure they have success stories that are relating to you, that it's not just talking about themselves and how much money they made. Okay, that's great for them. But you want to look for someone who has, in my case, I have, if you go to the website, there's over 250 case studies, success stories. That's how you know it's a system, and that's how you know it will work for you too.
Cool. And I would say, and I would close this out by kind of hinting at what you were just saying there around, you have goals that are unrealized, you have some dreams that are unrealized. I think sometimes we get into business, and some people listening to this have been going at it for 20 plus years. Some are 10 years in, some are 4 years in, which is kind of interesting because you're still new, but you're new enough. You've got enough mileage underneath there. You went, this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be when I threw my tools down and started my own business. I think it's always helpful, even though it's not a goal setting time of the year here in September or the fall period. Anytime's a good goal setting time. What are you really trying to achieve? Where are you trying to go? The clearer we get with, like you were talking about earlier, the destination, and whatever that looks like for you, the clearer we are, the more attainable it becomes. And I have a feeling that Noah's got some resources to help you become make those dreams and aspirations attainable as well.
Yes.
Noah's great meeting you. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your clarity. And thank you for that reminder that the psychology side, the way that we think, the way that we approach that really matters. And we all need to be students of that.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.